Какво? Не чух. Hi, Mr.
Hello?
Trash. Hi. Do you hear me?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
How are
fine,
you? Yes,
thank
I
you.
can.
Okay.
Yes, can you hear me? Well, very good.
Аз ще го виждам ли на контролния? Окей. Да. Готов съм, с кашля ще почнем. Добре, окей. Готов съм. So I'm saying hello to Mr. John Trash, who is chairman and CEO of Houston-based eCorp. Hi. So Mr. Trash...
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Mr. Trash, so far the low oil prices have led to the delay or the lack of huge investments globally. Is this the end of the oil era?
I think your question is, given current events, is this the end of the oil era? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I think not. But I do think it's the beginning of a very significant contraction. Right now, something like 60% to two-thirds of global oil is used to make transportation fuels. And if in the energy transition we can move to other forms of powering transportation, for example, electric cars, then we could have profound mitigation in the demand for oil. This is something that's likely to happen. In the U.S. alone, something like 45–50% of petroleum imports are used to make gasoline. So if we were able to transition successfully to electric cars, for example, I think it's 45–50% at present. So it would make a huge dent in oil demand if we could transition to electric cars, for example. And this certainly seems to be a trend that's underway. But I think we'll always have to have oil for some of the specialty chemicals and pharmaceuticals, plastics, things that don't necessarily immediately contribute to greenhouse gas emissions, but nonetheless are part of our daily lives.
I see. What do you think about the recovery in prices? I mean, this recovery in prices in the future will stimulate renewed growth in shale mining in the U.S. Does this will lead to additional quantities of oil in the market and limit the rise of the prices?
I would agree with that. I think that the emphasis in the U.S. now for shale oil is to achieve greater efficiency. So I think the result of that relative to oil pricing is steady, constant pressure to keep oil prices, that would keep oil prices down. But certain shale basins and certain operators being more efficient in the extraction process would have the benefit of maintaining profitability, but it would be a smaller dollar market because of the contraction of price. Right now we're seeing a little bit of rise in price, but I wouldn't expect it to, at least from our beliefs and our analysis, we wouldn't expect this to result in a huge oil price spike.
I see. Let's talk in general about the topic. In which direction do you see the development of the sector, and do you expect reshaping in the sector?
What was the last part of your question? What in the sector?
reshaping in the sector.
Reshaping?
Yeah.
Was that the word?
Uh,
Yes. Yeah, I'd say so. You know, you look at the majors are moving quickly to greater natural gas mix in their portfolio worldwide. I think Total's chairman recently announced this shift in direction and sort of a moving away from being so predominant, such a high concentration of oil in their portfolio. They've also expressed an interest in power generation, natural gas-fired power generation. Exxon has technology for carbon capture and sequestration from power plants. And so I think everyone in the industry of producing hydrocarbons is thinking about how fossil fuels are going to fit into the future energy mix. And one of the things that will have to happen is cleaner utilization of these hydrocarbons, and there's just a natural bias to methane over, say, coal or oil products because of the dramatically reduced carbon dioxide emissions when using natural gas.
Your company is active in Europe, in the United Kingdom, in France, and in Switzerland. But what are the prospects in the sector for Eastern Europe?
Well, if you look at the shale deposits that exist in Eastern Europe, in particular in and around Bulgaria, the Carpathian Crescent and the Moesian Platform, preliminary studies of this based on available information that we have today suggest that there's an enormous potential in Eastern European states. And so originally our company first sought to develop shale storage and natural gas-fired generation in Bulgaria. It was our first effort was to try to bring this asset triad to Bulgaria back in 2009 and 10. I think we were meeting there with officials. And very shortly after this, however, the ban against shale gas development was put in place, and so we have monitored the situation and have tried to be proactively explaining the benefits of shale and shale development and the potential in Bulgaria, but thus far to no avail. In France, we did the exact same thing, where there was also a ban against hydraulic fracturing, and actually got into a very intensive study with the French government for an alternative to fracturing with water. And that alternative exists today, and we are trying to bring it forward, develop this technology for field applications, not only in Europe, but also in the U.S., where efficiency and water consumption issues are starting to become more and more important to operators in the U.S.
Maybe my last question, how the new technologies are changing the treatment of energy sources and the cost of energy. And in your prediction, what are the main energy sources of the future?
I would say that we believe that natural gas will figure profoundly into the energy transition. And we believe this because what's been discovered about shale rocks in general around the world is that they make excellent, once depleted, they make excellent, they have the potential to become very large-scale carbon dioxide sequestration reservoirs. There's a lot of technology being developed to capture carbon from the atmosphere. Many different techniques capture carbon after combustion, carbon dioxide after carbon combustion processes, but where do we re-inject these? And of course, conventional reservoirs and other kinds of sedimentary rock reservoirs have been considered. But the fascinating thing about shales is that they have the potential to absorb more CO2 than the methane originally in the matrix. So this could potentially afford a carbon negative source of energy in shale gas when you factor back in the sequestration potential, which would be very large indeed. Then with the supply of electricity from shale gas, all other forms of alternative and renewable energy would be enabled in the following way. They are often, you think of solar, wind, and wave. These are often of intermittent supply during the day or when the seas are still or the wind isn't blowing. And so in addition to battery technologies, which would help with this and distributed power schemes, the ability to generate when alternative energy sources were not available would be a very powerful combination indeed. So I'd say in sum, we would think that the combination of shale gas, subsequent carbon dioxide sequestration in shale reservoirs combined with the effort globally now to transition to renewables and sustainable sources of energy will probably define the energy mix in the next few decades.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Mr. Trash, thank you for your time and for the conversation. Bye.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.